Do you have questions about your employment law rights that you need answered? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Every week, Lecker & Associates disability and employment lawyers are taking your questions on a wide range of employment law topics. Call 1-888-802-2016 or send your questions to askalawyer@cp24.com. Watch Ask a Lawyer every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
If you've ever had a question about your employment law rights, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Ask a Lawyer, a call-in show where we take your questions about all things employment law. I'm your host, Dana Levinson. Each week we dive into a different employment-related topic that is on many Canadians' minds. I'd like to welcome my two guests for today, Jordan Reiner, partner with Toronto-based law firm Lecker & Associates, and Kimberly Sabag, associate lawyer with Lecker & Associates. Today, we're going to talk about frustration and abandonment of employment. As always, we'll be taking questions from Canadians. But before we get to your emails, Jordan, can you introduce us to both of these topics?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you. It's so nice to be back. Frustration is a topic that I've had to deal with many, many times in my career. The simplest definition of it means that the terms of the employment agreement can no longer be performed, and it's really neither party's fault. It's just something that's happened that's made it impossible for either party to be able to fulfill its obligations under the employment agreement. Abandonment is a little more straightforward. Abandonment is the notion that an employee has not come into work, even though they were meant to be there, an unauthorized absence. And there are many ways that an abandonment can occur. And we'll be talking about a couple of different scenarios that may come up today.
Absolutely. We've got lots of scenarios to get to, so we want you to give us a call. If you have a question for our experts, call us at 1-888-802-2016 or email us at askalawyer@cp24.com. Let's kick things off by taking our first email. Robert from Alliston had this question for our experts. 3 years ago, I was injured at work and suffered a horrible muscle tear in my bicep. I've been on WSIB ever since, and my doctor is now saying I will never be able to do my job again. I might be able to work again, but I would have a lot of physical limitations. Does my employer have to find me a new job? What if there is no job available? Jordan, why don't you take that?
Thank you. This is a very tough situation to be in. An individual who has suffered an injury so serious that they can't do their job again may find themselves in a situation where we have a frustration. They are unable to perform their duties. In some circumstances, an employer may have an obligation to look internally to see if there's any jobs available. And if they do have a job available, they would be required to offer that job to this individual as long as it meets their physical limitations, taking into account the injury. But if they don't, the employer may have to argue that the employment agreement is frustrated. It's not the employer's fault that the person has become injured. Of course, it's not the employee's fault that they've become injured, but the injury has occurred, and a doctor has indicated that that individual will never be able to do their work again. In those circumstances, severance pay might be possible. The law says that when there is a frustration as a result of an illness or injury, the employer still has to provide the employee with their statutory payments pursuant to the Employment Standards Act.
Mm-hmm. So they would get severance. They'd get something.
It's very possible, yes.
Okay, so they'd be entitled to ask for that if they're not coming back.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let's take another question. This is from Marilee in Belleville. I was laid off in May of 2020 due to COVID. In the interim, I found a new job. Now, after a year and a half, the employer that laid me off has sent me a recall letter inviting me back to work in just 2 weeks. What can I do if I don't go back? Is this considered job abandonment? Kimberly.
So that's pretty much exactly what abandonment is, right? Mm-hmm. It's the unwillingness to remain bound by the terms of the employment agreement. And of course, the employer has the obligation to provide you with employment. The employer has the obligation to show up and do the work. So obviously if you've been laid off during COVID, which is a very unfortunate circumstance, it happened to a lot of people, you are free during that time to go look for another job. But if your employer calls you back to work, you have to make that decision. Do I stay with my new job or do I go back to my old job? And something really important to think about is when you're going back to the job you held before a layoff, you should have your seniority, the same rate of pay, all of the benefits that you had should remain the same. And of course, it's really important if you were to get terminated in the future that you had a pretty long-standing service. Whereas if you're going to give that up and go with the new job, it's most likely you've been there for a very limited time. And if you were to be terminated sometime in the near future, that could, affect the kind of severance you would get.
So Jordan, if somebody does exactly what Marilee did, she took another job, wasn't she supposed to tell her employer that she got another job?
Well, she's been on layoff. And if she wanted to do the right thing and be nice, and she could have told the employer she has a new job and she could have resigned. But what I would tell the client in those circumstances, whether it be her or anyone in the same situation, is if you tell your employer that you're resigning, you don't get severance. Mm-hmm. Many employers who lay off their employees often don't recall them. Things don't get better over time. And at some point, the law says that they have to be terminated. And when that happens, they're owed a severance. What I would tell this individual is, wait. If they decide not to recall you, they'll make you an offer, at the very least have to pay you your statutory entitlements, and you'll already have a new job, so you may end up with a little bit of a windfall. On the other hand, if they do one day recall you, well, then you resign. Nothing lost, nothing gained.
Okay, let's take a short break. When we come back, we have so much to talk about. Jordan and Kimberly from Leckers & Associates will answer more of your questions. Stay with us. Yeah? Was that fun? Off the...
Do you have questions about your employment law rights that you need answered? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Every week, Leckers & Associates disability and employment lawyers are taking your questions on a wide range of employment law topics. Call 1-888-802-2016 or send your questions to askalawyer@cp24.com. Watch Ask a Lawyer every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.